Welcome to Healing Echoes. Today we have with us Sophia Hyde. She is a master life coach, author, professional speaker, and community builder. What took her 10 years to create, she now successfully guides others through in a mere fraction of the time. Her book, Unleash Your Favorite Self, and its corresponding journal recently launched. Once a stressed out entrepreneur with people-pleasing tendencies, Sophia believed the more she pushed and hustled, the closer she would be to success. Through experiencing firsthand what it was like to struggle in the gap between the life she was living and the life she knew she came here to live, she freed herself. A wife and a mom of 2 young children, Sophia is now living her purpose and speaking her mind. She is committed to helping others connect with their personal power and unleash their favorite selves into the world. Hey, Sophia.
Hello.
I am so happy to have you here today. I think I kind of want to start the conversation with you telling us more about yourself personally and what brought you to writing the book.
Sure. What would you like to know about me?
Anything, anything that you're willing to share. I know you had mentioned that you have ADHD as well,
I
and I
do.
think being neurodivergent definitely plays a role in being stressed out. So, anything that you would like to share on those topics for sure.
Yeah, I mean, being that I have ADHD, I can talk forever. So
I feel it.
this
Same here.
this could go on a while. Yeah, there's so much I could say. So I have two kids. I got married when I was 20.
Mm,
And I jumped right into entrepreneurship. And so all of the things about being a wife, a mom, an entrepreneur, balancing all of that together.
mhm.
We waited 7 years to have kids. So my kids are 10 and 7 now.
Wow.
And I predominantly work with women who are entrepreneurs because the mental load of motherhood means that the tabs are always open. And then the being an entrepreneur and owning your own business means that the mental tabs are always open. And most of my clients also have ADHD, which means no matter what you're doing, the tabs are always open. And
Yeah.
so I have a lot of my clients just experience overwhelm. And I think the reason I have kind of fallen into that being a majority of my clients is because it's my story, right?
Yeah.
And so for so long, I just thought that, man, I'm supposed to be smart because I was a 90s kid and the gifted and talent, that meme that's going around that's right now. It's
Yeah.
like, tell me you were a 90s kid in the gifted and talented program, and how's your ADHD or anxiety going and your
Yeah.
spiritual journey that you're currently on? And I was like,
Oh,
yes,
yes.
I feel seen. That is me. But yeah, I thought that I was like, I know that I'm smart, but why do I suck at so many things? And I didn't get
Mhm.
diagnosed ADHD until I was 34 years old. And
Mhm.
it made so much of my life make sense. And so, for those first up until that point, I knew that I had all this potential and all this greatness and was meant for so many things. And I had all these great dreams and goals and was going to do all these awesomeness. And I'm looking around at my friends who are, just got their shit together. And I'm going like, I know that I'm smart and I'm dreaming way bigger than them. And I'm willing to hustle. I'm willing to work, but like, why don't I have the results? And
Yeah.
um, finding out I was ADHD was such a gift because I finally understood why my journey and my path looked so different than everybody else's. And then I could understand how to care for my brain and care for my mind. And many people who are getting diagnosed right now in their 30s, women in their 30s getting
Mhm.
diagnosed, are because we're trying to help our kids.
Yeah.
And then we're learning all this stuff about the brain, and they're like, wait, this stuff's hereditary. Like, wait, what's happening?
You're
And
like, oh,
so yeah, my journey was my daughter. I mean, it turns out the symptoms were there from like age of 2, but it wasn't until she was 6 that we noticed that, just like, we realized that she had childhood anxiety. And then by the time she was 7, like, we just could not manage it alone anymore. And we took her to Amen Clinic, got her brain scanned, found out exactly what was going on. And just, she's like always firing on all cylinders. Like, her brain's just never calm.
mhm.
And so in our journey to help our daughter with what was going on in her brain, it ended up leading to me figuring out that I was neurodivergent. And so for the last few years, we were just kind of on that journey. But yeah, I mean, this could take so many different rabbit trails, but what happened was the book ended up, my second pregnancy wasn't planned. And
Mm,
so I like to say that the emotions of writing this book were very, very, very similar to what I experienced with an unplanned pregnancy. Like I
mm,
didn't, it's like I wasn't planning to write a book. I wasn't planning to be an author. Like this wasn't like something that I requested. But it just dropped in and needed to happen. And so I just found myself being like, I have to write this book. And it came out of this place of like the personal growth and development world, which I've loved, like self-help books for like 20 years.
yeah.
I love them and have. And so as I was trying to help my clients, I was running into one of two problems. Either the ideas and concepts that I wanted to pass on and for them to learn were in 20 different places. And when
Mm,
people come to you for life coaching, they don't want to be like, read these 20 books. It's like, no,
yeah.
I'm hiring you to help me
Yeah. Help
simplify
me.
all of this. Yeah, I do not need all this homework. And so there was like some core things I wanted them to understand and integrate. And so it was either spread across a million places or it didn't exist. I didn't know where to find it. And I just needed to like teach them somehow. And so the book was birthed out of a desire to help my clients get better results.
Mhm.
And in the process, it ended up, taking on a life of its own and becoming its own thing. And yeah, I just had no idea what I was in for in writing my story. So that is like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it comes out of this like life isn't like I didn't think it was supposed to be this hard. And ultimately I ended up realizing that the favorite self-concept is about getting rid of the shoulds and supposed tos. And
Mhm.
so the more I can help people just be who they're meant to be in the world and
Yeah.
unlearn, like I think I do more unlearning with my clients than I do teaching. It's like
Mhm.
pulling away all these layers to figure out, who they really are inside.
Yeah, I love it. I know should is my husband's least favorite word, and I had it very majorly in my vocabulary. I was constantly to myself, I should be doing that, should. And he's like, stop using that word. It really is, it can be terrible, especially when you use it against yourself. Um, I know I resonate with so much with your personal story, and in reading the book, I felt a little called out because I myself am 27. I have 5 children, but 2 of them are mine biologically. I became a mom at 19, went right into entrepreneurship by 21. So I just very quickly went down the same path. And I didn't get my autism diagnosis until 2 years ago. And now I've self-diagnosed with ADHD as well. Especially being with my husband who has ADHD, I'm like, oh, great.
There's a lot of overlap there.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of people that have both of the things.
Yeah, and our oldest, his oldest, who became mine last year, is autistic. My oldest biological is autistic. And now I'm watching my youngest one show some signs at 2, and I'm like, oh God, we're all gonna be neurodivergent. But yeah, so I just kind of like I resonated with so much, and in the very beginning, it felt like you were talking about some of the rock bottoms you had hit
Mhm.
in your personal life. And again, I was like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one that has went through these things. Especially when just the story of like how much it felt like, the entrepreneurship and the, getting married young and having children young and then being neurodivergent. I was like, I thought ticking all the boxes was like something unique to my story. And then the more I do this podcast and meet people like yourself, I'm like, okay, it's not that rare. This happens a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but it can certain parts of the journey, like especially like the stories I share in the spiritual spoke and in the friendship spoke,
Mhm.
there's just certain parts of the story that feel so lonely, like you're the only one going through this. And then once we start talking about it and exchanging stories, it turns out like these are so common. Like my spiritual story of leaving the church, which my whole family is still inside of. It makes you feel like a black sheep and like you're the only one and you're like leaving this community. And it makes you, I mean, I remember that being a very lonely, and I was 5 years into it and kind of coming out the other side before I realized that I had spent 5 years processing grief, like real
Mhm.
intense, heavy grief. And it's like, I didn't even realize I was going through, because after I went through my whole spiritual journey, then all these podcasters and
Yeah.
Instagrammers and TikTokers started using the phrases deconstruction and reconstruction.
Hmm.
But that stuff wasn't around when I was going through it.
No.
Like I was very alone for years. And then I finally found Rob Bell's podcast and the Liturgist podcast. And those, that was this, we're going back like 8 years ago now.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. There's like 1,000 of us, it still
Yeah,
was like,
there's
it
so
felt like
many of us, yeah.
it felt like even then it was like a small niche community that I had found.
Yeah.
And then just I think 2020 really opened that Pandora's box, but I was already on the other side of it.
You're
By the
like,
time
"I've already done
2020
this."
came, I was like, hello, welcome everybody.
Yeah,
Now you
welcome
can
to the
see what I've been
show.
seeing for a decade. Your eyes have been opened to come and join
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, the terminology definitely wasn't there because I had to leave the church as well. I got raised in the church by my mother. And I actually did a webinar on religious trauma at the end of January. And it was just amazing the amount of people were like, same. And I'm like, where were y'all when I was going through it?
Yeah, it feels so lonely until you're on the other side and you find how normal and common it is. But I think part of it is that, if you're inside of that, it becomes your whole community, right? Because all your friendships and relationships and familial relationships, like they're all wrapped up in this. So you think it's like everybody, and
Mhm.
it can take a little while to realize that um that's actually a minority. Like most of the world is actually chill and cool and probably can like talk you through some of this stuff. Yeah, but it takes like getting out of that microcosm to realize how normal it is.
Yeah, for sure. So I noticed on going on your website that I know that you have the book and the journal that kind of goes along with it, but it mentioned something about an app as well. What is that?
Yeah, so the app was born in an effort to make things easier for people.
Hmm.
Because in the book, there's different times where I talk about like, there's this download, there's this tool you can learn, there's this, this worksheet. And um, I wanted a way. I previously had like what many other coaches have, which is like a website where you can do online courses or watch videos
Hmm.
or download things, and it's hard to remember how to get back to those places. You're
Yeah,
like, what, who was that I downloaded? Where was that course that I bought? Like,
yeah.
I think it's in my emails from 2 years ago. And the platform that I've been previously using, it wasn't the most phone friendly, and we all know that everybody's on their phones.
Mm.
And so I wanted a way that these tools could be, especially the tool I talk about in chapter 4, the mind spoke, the thought and feelings wheel.
Mhm.
It's really a tool that can be used on an almost daily basis to reframe your thoughts and get more clarity, understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling, see what's serving you, learn from it, and also transmute it into more power for yourself, like if you can. And so the thought and feelings wheel are so powerful, but they're easy to forget. Like if you just need to pull up a feelings reel real quick, or you're just like, what were the journal prompts in the thought wheel again?
Mhm.
Um, you may not have your journal handy to go grab, or you might be like, wait, I downloaded that from her website. Where's that email from 6 months ago? And anyways, the idea to put like my most common resources in the app was just so that the app could always just be on your phone and you would be like, oh, let me just go open that. I know where to find it. And for my clients who are inside my coaching program who want to more easily access the videos and the trainings and the recordings,
Mhm.
it's just simpler to make it phone friendly. So anyways, that's where the app came from, was just trying to make people's lives easier.
I love that actually. That's why I spotted it, but I didn't have enough time to see like what exactly it was. And I was like, I have to ask her about this. And it'll be useful to ask her about it on the podcast because then everybody
Yeah.
will be there. That's such a cool, especially for like, I'm just thinking from my perspective, being a neurodivergent, like it really is. If I hear about it and then it's gone, I'm gonna have a hard time pulling it back up or remembering where to find it, like you said. That has to come very in handy for a lot of people. That's brilliant on your part.
Thank you.
Yeah. Which came first, the coaching or the book?
Oh, the coaching for sure.
Yeah, I thought
So one of the things I share in the
that.
book is that in 2011 I did a sabbatical. I had hit burnout. I was working way too many hours a week. I had no self care. And so I crashed, and
Mm,
I asked my husband to go stay with friends and take the 3 cats with him so that I could sit in my house by myself in the quiet.
mm,
And I created my own silent retreat. And I was just always on the go. My brain was busy. My life was busy. I was just like, I just need to be by myself in my house. Like, I'm tired of being gone all the time. And
mm,
so I came home to myself. And in that silent retreat, one of the things I did by getting quiet with myself was realizing that what I actually wanted to be when I grew up, and we're going back to 2011 here,
mhm,
was I wanted to be a life coach. And it was a very rare job. Like, a lot of people haven't even heard of it yet. And I was like, that's what I want to be when I grow up. But my life was a hot mess. And
mm.
so it was like, it didn't really make a lot. Nobody in my life was going to start listening to me when I was broke and disorganized. And like, I wasn't exactly a role model of a person. Um, and so I knew if I'm gonna do that, I need to like get my shit together and clean
Mm,
up the messy parts of my life. And so I set out on that journey. And then I started coaching in 2019. And within a couple of years, it was just like that's where I started hitting that, like, this feeling of frustration that I wanted my clients to have certain tools and ideas and concepts, and I couldn't find them somewhere else out there. And that's when
mm,
that message just dropped in. And even though I have left the church, I still consider myself a very spiritual person, and I regularly meditate and connect with the divine. And it just felt like the divine dropped in this message that was like, yeah, the tool doesn't exist anywhere because you're supposed to write it. Like, this is what I'm asking you to do, is to birth this. And I was like, oh shit. Like, you don't, it's just like an unplanned pregnancy. You're like,
Yeah.
ah, okay,
Okay.
I'm sure this child's going to be amazing. And like my son, he was unplanned, and he has brought so much joy to our lives. And yet you're like, this is going to be a lot of work. Like,
Yeah.
you got to stretch, you got to grow. And honestly, I thought it was like going to be a 6-month project. I did not know it was a 2-year project.
Mm,
And I did not know how much it was going to take out of me, but I would still do it all over again. Because it is helping people. Like, I'm already getting the stories of people who this book is helping, and that makes me so happy. Selfishly, I would do it all over again for the personal benefit that I got out of it. I didn't even know that. Like, I started this with my clients in mind.
mhm,
It turns out it's helping my clients a little bit. It's
mhm.
helping people who I will never meet a lot of it. Like, people who would
Wow.
never hire a life coach, work with a life coach, like,
Mhm.
or maybe can't afford a life coach, and they're getting their hands on this book and they're going, holy crap, like, I so needed this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I didn't even realize, like, I thought this was going to be for my audience, and it turns out it's for people I may never meet, which is a really cool thing. And all that's great,
Yeah.
but the benefit of writing a book with your story is it helped me, like, it was spiritually, mentally, and emotionally and physically draining and exhausting.
Mm,
So I'm an extrovert, and it sent me into my cave. I call it my cave era, where I just, like, I
yeah.
didn't see my friends. I didn't go anywhere. Like, I was either home, even if I wasn't working on the book, because the book
Yeah.
took about 6 months to write, but then it took like another like
Mhm.
6 or 8 months of editing, and then the promotion, and the designing a cover, and like this whole
Yeah.
going back and forth. And then I had to fire my publisher because it was a hot mess. And then I
Oh,
hired a new
goodness.
publisher. And so the whole thing was just a lot. It was a 2-year project. But um even then, even after I got through the writing phase, it just brought up a lot. I had to go back into therapy because you're just like, it
Yeah.
just brought up, it's like you just cut it all open, and then it's all out there, and then you
Kind of
gotta
test
try
it out.
and
Yeah.
wind it back together. But who I am on the other side of it, like,
Mhm.
I would do all of that over again just for the experience. And now that I just see how many people it's helping, it's just, icing on the cake.
Yeah, the impact was even greater than you could have pictured. That's awesome. I can attest to, like, I started writing my own as well, and it's my personal story, and I am so thankful that I am in therapy while I'm writing it. Because it definitely does. Sometimes you're like, whew, okay, I got it out, but now I need to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah. And, another thing that happened for me was, if I'm going to write about this, like, some stuff I just didn't realize how that it was, like, still showing up today. Right. And if I'm going to lead in integrity, it's like, I can't put this in the book and not be practicing it. And so I'm going to have to go address this stuff I was avoiding.
Mm,
If I want to put this in print,
yeah.
then I'm going to have these hard conversations, deal with these heavy lifts. It's like, okay, I gotta go do this.
It's like writing the book held you a little accountable too. What a
Yeah.
journey that had to be. I'm in the very beginning of it. I've only written like 3 chapters, I think, at this point. So we'll have to catch up once I'm there. What are some of the, if you don't mind sharing, what are some of the main tools or like advice that you give people that you're working with?
Um, so I hmm. It's not the same for every person because of,
Mhm,
what people come is always very unique. But some of the most common tools that are helpful to across the board. First of all, is the favorite self concept. And so a lot of people are trapped inside the messaging of who they're supposed to be in the world.
mhm,
And so this idea of being successful or your best self comes with these connotations. People automatically start thinking of money, finances, material wealth, possessions. And, I want us to, I want to encourage us to like of how to get away from that.
mhm,
And is that reflective of your favorite self? So like I was at Disney World yesterday. We live in Central Florida. It's only 45 minutes away. We got passes for our family. And it just is fascinating to me how I just see people walking around with like labels that, of certain brands of clothes. And they're, we're at Disney World. So it's a certain demographic of people. And I'm
mhm.
seeing a bunch of same brand names over and over again. I'm like, this is so interesting to me. Like, why this stuff matters. Are we doing this to fit in, to get into like, why do I care what a stranger thinks of me? Anyways, it's just fascinating to me. But I encourage people to get in alignment with their favorite self, which means that you write the definition of who your favorite self is, and nobody gets to tell you who that is or who it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
And when I began coaching, what I found was people, a lot of the gap between who they were and who they wanted to be was that they were trapped inside of a message who they were supposed to be. And it
Mm,
turns out they were actually already living a life they loved. It was like, wait, wait, wait. What if this is actually what you want? And so, like, coming to acceptance of, oh, I actually like this life. What I'm suffering from is the messages that this isn't supposed to be enough. Like,
mhm.
so I have certain people who have chosen a life of being single. And it's like, wait, why do I feel bad that I don't have a partner? I don't want a partner. Okay,
Yeah.
so if we're gonna just accept that you want to be single, then let's just be single and build a beautiful life around that. It's like so freeing to be like, oh my God, I can just be single,
Yeah.
and that's like one example. Or people who choose to not have kids.
Yeah.
And there's people who lots of different choices, and I get it. I'm the stereotype. I
Yeah.
have a boy and a girl and a husband, and I drive a minivan, and I
Yeah.
volunteer with my kids PTA. Like, come on, I am the stereotype, but I want people to have the absolute most freedom to be whoever they want to be
Mm,
and to live whatever life they want to live. And we all yet still fall inside of these traps of who
mhm.
we're quote unquote supposed to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of my shoulding comes from being in a very religious community and being this black sheep who's left that behind. And you
Mm,
know like I went to Flavie Grant's concert a few weeks ago,
mhm.
and she is a Christian drag artist, and it's like, what box does that fit in? Because drag queens who are Christian, it's like she doesn't fit inside the Christian group
Yeah.
drag queen, but the drag queens are like, what are you doing making a Christian album? And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is
You're
amazing.
like,
I
this is
love it.
perfect.
Yes. So beautiful. Right.
I
And
love
so
it.
it's like this, what I think, like, for just using Flamey as an example, the reason I love her work so much is I just want to see people being whoever they are in whatever that looks like. And what more of an epitome of being your favorite self is somebody who is like, there is no other label. I am the only one in my genre.
Yeah.
It's like,
I
I just
am the
love that.
label.
Yes. I just think it's so beautiful
Yeah, it
and so
is.
inspiring when people set out to be whoever they want to be in the world, whatever that looks like. And so there's that. There's a lot, the book has a lot of unlearning, and it's probably 2/3 memoir. So I share my story, and then it's a third tools, because the idea was, if I make this book with these tools, so like I've already mentioned the thought wheel and the feelings wheel, which
Mhm.
help people. You probably heard of like limiting beliefs. So like your thoughts that limit you or whatever. And that's just a word that I think is kind of loaded and hard to get inside your own head to figure out. And so
Mhm.
I teach the thought wheel and the feelings wheel to help people learn how to manage their own thoughts and feelings. And our feelings can be the best teacher in the whole world. And
Yeah.
so these two tools together are like, when these uncomfortable feelings rise, when you have this desire to escape, like for me, it's ice cream at 10 p.m. It's like when you're, or some people, they might use alcohol or
Mhm.
drugs or binging Netflix or scrolling social media. But it's like, whenever you want to escape your feelings, no, 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 no. Let's look at them. They're so
Yeah.
beautiful. What can they teach us? And so, like, let's go look at our feelings, feel our feelings. But then what do I do with that? Okay, I acknowledge this is the feeling I'm feeling. And then what? And so I teach this tool to help us transmute it into our power, to
Mm.
really show us what our feelings are wanting to teach us. I just think that they're the best. Like jealousy, for example, is my favorite emotion,
Yeah.
because she shows us our true desires. And
Mhm.
once we know the desires, then we can actually do something with them,
Yeah.
right? And so like I love all the uncomfortable feelings. Like let's like see them, let's look at them, let's feel them.
Teaches you something about yourself. For
Yes, yes. And so like that tool, so I have these tools in the book, but it's not as interesting to just read about tools.
Mhm.
It's easier to learn about a tool through somebody's story.
Mm.
And so, like, I tell the story of when the ice cream was pulling at me at 10 p.m. and I chose not to open the freezer and instead to get out my worksheet. And when I got out my worksheet, I realized that I was shaming on myself, thinking I wasn't a good enough mom. And it was, something I saw on social media that was, I didn't even realize it didn't consciously send me down a spiral. It just like made me feel a certain way. And then
Yeah.
rather than dealing with what I was feeling, I was going to go eat ice cream instead. And
Yeah.
instead, I dealt with the feelings and then it made me take different actions. Right.
Mm.
And so, when you hear the story, you can then understand the tool.
Yeah.
And so 2/3 of the book is my story, and then I teach the tools. But that's why I also made a journal with it, because the answers to like you living your favorite life and being your favorite self, they're not inside me. They're not inside my story. They're inside of you.
Mm.
And the power of writing, and this is why writing your book will be such a gift to you, is that writing connects the left and the right brain, but it also connects the unconscious to the conscious. So it
Mm.
brings things up. And that's why I wrote the journal to go with it, is because sure, you can read about my story. You can read about my tools. It'll probably inspire you. You might get a great little nugget out of it. But
Mhm.
if you do the journal, your life will change. Like I can say
Wow.
that with so much confidence. Like I feel so clear. Like
Mhm.
if you do the journal, your life will change, because how could it not change if you go in and write on these prompts I'm giving you? They are prompts that will change everything if you actually
Yeah.
slow down and ask yourself these questions.
Yeah, for sure. I loved that they were coupled, that they were paired, and when I promote, I'm definitely gonna be like, do both. Don't just do one. Two things. I absolutely love that, like, my follow-up question was gonna be kind of like, oh, what's your advice or words of encouragement? But you kind of already covered it all in one, and I love that. But the second one was that I noticed that in the title that I already kind of felt that you were very intentional with using the word like your favorite self. And that's what stood out to me because, like you said, the best self, or, all the other overused terms that people use, usually people do equate them to money and even abundance. When people hear abundance, they think finances. And so hearing my favorite self, I was like, oh, okay, I really do want to read this book because what does that look like to me? How will this help me, do that? So I just when you were pointing that out, I was like, I definitely want to address that because it stood out to me. And I hope it stands out to other people that is really important. That's what sets this book apart from all the other self-help books, so to speak, for sure. In wrapping up, I do want to appreciate you for coming on and sharing everything that you have to share, but also give you an opportunity to kind of promote yourself, where people can reach you, anything that you want to share so that any listeners that wish to can get in touch.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Okay. So, I would be totally happy to do, if you want to link to a giveaway, I will give away a free coaching session to anybody in your audience. Um, if you like, I'll do a drawing for it so they can
Mhm.
enter into it. So I'll send you a link so that people can enter into that. I do them on the podcast and I will draw one a month. And so if they enter into that, I will draw a name and they're welcome to submit to that. And so
Awesome.
I'll send you that link
Mhm.
and then that'll just be, you can put it in your show notes or whatever. And then other than that, I'm on all the places. So the book is on Amazon, Unleash Your Favorite Self. I show up the most on Instagram. And so that is at the Sophia Hyde. My website is sophiahyde.com. But in my Instagram bio, that's like the easiest thing is to just click on the Instagram bio because it has the links to all the stuff. You can find the app, you can find the website, you can find
Yeah.
you can download from there. You can actually download just a couple of the chapters. So if people are like, do I want to buy this book? You can read the intro and
Right.
then the two most powerful, but we didn't even get into self-care, but my definition of self-care is energy management.
Mhm.
And so the chapter on self-care and the chapter on the mind are really powerful at changing your life. And so you can get those 3 chapters as a free download through my Instagram bio.
Oh, wow.
So
Awesome.
yeah, that's a great place people can start. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm around. I'm all the places.
I'll make sure as well that I include the links in the show notes that people can just click instead of having to search everything. But yeah, thank you again. It was awesome talking to you. I look forward to connecting in the future.
Yes, thank you.